Welcome back. My name is Jack Nakashima, and today we're looking at Revelation chapter 8. Now, having introduced us to the 144,000 as well as their converts, John takes us back to the sealed judgments to finish them up. There's only one left, and that's the seventh sealed judgment, but it opens up to another series of 7 judgments, and these next judgments are called the Trumpet Judgments. This chapter will cover the first 4 of the Trumpet Judgments as well. So let's take a look. And when he opened the 7th seal, there followed a silence in heaven for about half an hour. And he saw the 7 angels who stand before God, and they were given 7 trumpets. When the 7th seal is broken, all of heaven will go silent. This is an ominous sign. There is a high level of reverence given to the coming wrath. Heaven is preparing for the trumpet judgments. As bad as things had become, they will grow even worse. The seal judgments brought forth death and destruction at a greater level than the world had ever seen, but people had seen these types of problems before, just not to such a degree. Now, with the trumpet judgments, there will be released unprecedented cosmic devastation, and demonic activity will flourish and be far more rampant and public. For people not to recognize the supernatural origin of these judgments, they will have to be completely spiritually blind and really quite foolish. We also see here that 7 angels are involved in releasing these judgments. Jesus was needed to start the tribulation and to release each of the sealed judgments. But the next set reveals a greater level of angelic participation. Each time that an angel blows a trumpet, another judgment is let loose. But before the first of these 7 angels blows his trumpet, we see another angel come forward in verses 3 through 5. And another angel came and stood over the altar. He had a golden censer, and was given lots of incense so that he could add it to the prayers of all the saints upon the golden altar which was before the throne. And the smoke of the incense with the prayers of the saints went up before God out of the angel's hand. And the angel took the censer and filled it with fire from the altar and threw it upon the earth, and there was thunder and sound, and flashes of lightning, and an earthquake. Back when the temple in Jerusalem was standing, incense was offered twice a day as a sacrifice. The selected priest would take coals from the brazen altar outside, take those coals into the holy place, and put incense on them to burn as a sweet-smelling sacrifice to God. This is what we see Zechariah doing in Luke chapter 1, when he is told by the angel Gabriel that his elderly wife Elizabeth would give birth to John the Baptist. Now, here in Revelation 8, we see a similar form of worship. Incense is being burned, and just like with Zechariah, it is associated with prayers of the saints. It's really a wonderful picture because in the midst of the chaos of the tribulation, as God is about to pour forth another set of judgments, he takes the time to listen to our prayers, to listen to those who belong to him. Just as heaven is preparing for the trumpet judgments, the angel wakes up the earth so that the people on earth will also be prepared for God's wrath. He throws fire down upon the earth, which causes lightning and thunder and an earthquake. Then verse 6 says, and the 7 angels that had the 7 trumpets prepared themselves to blow the trumpets. So now everyone has been prepared for the trumpet judgments, heaven, earth, and the angels who actually have the trumpets. And what we will see in a number of judgments is a striking similarity to the plagues against Egypt in the days of Moses and Aaron. I'll point these out when they happen. But these similarities, they serve as reminders that God will remember his covenant with Israel to protect them and to bring their enemies to justice. This is especially relevant during the tribulation because, once again, the church has been raptured out, and God will turn his focus back on Israel and will be working his ministry of grace through the Jewish people. Now, each of the first 4 trumpet judgments concern the destruction of 1/3 part of something. First, 1/3 of the land, then 1/3 of the sea, then 1/3 of the rivers, and then 1/3 of the celestial bodies will be affected. Now, 2 things should be noted here. First, when it's talking about the earth, it should be understood that it's referring to land areas rather than the whole globe. So, earth is a reference to actual land. And then, secondly, and most important, while God destroys 1/3, he spares 2/3. So even while God is pouring out his wrath, he is showing mercy. God obviously has the ability to wipe out all life in an instant, but instead he prolongs it, providing people more time to turn to him. The purpose of his wrath is not merely punishment, but also to prompt sinners to repentance and to accepting the salvation that comes only through Jesus the Christ. And the first blew his trumpet, and there was hail and fire mingled with blood, and it was thrown upon the earth. And 1/3 of the earth was burned up, and 1/3 of the trees were burned up, and all the green grass was burned up. As mentioned, there is a connection to the plagues on Egypt. So Moses stretched out his staff to the heavens, and the Lord sent thunder and hail and lightning on the earth. And the Lord rained down hail upon the land of Egypt. So there was hail and flashes of lightning mingled with the hail, very severe, such as had not been in all the land of Egypt since it became a nation. With Moses it was hail and lightning. Now it's hail and fire. The result is 1/3 of the trees and 1/3 of the green grass are burned up. Let's continue. And the second angel blew his trumpet, and what looked like a great mountain burning with fire was thrown into the sea, and 1/3 of the sea became blood, and 1/3 of the living creatures that were in the sea died, and 1/3 of the ships were destroyed. So water will be turned into blood, and this reminds us of what we saw in Exodus chapter 7, verses 17 to 19. Thus says the Lord, by this you will know that I am the Lord. Behold, I will strike with the staff that is in my hand the waters which are in the Nile, and they will be turned into blood. And the fish that are in the Nile will die, and the Nile will become foul, and the Egyptians will be unable to drink water from the Nile. And the Lord said to Moses, tell Aaron, take your staff and stretch out your hand over the waters of Egypt, over their rivers, over their streams, and over their ponds, and over all their pools of water, and they will become blood. And there will be blood throughout all the land of Egypt, both in wooden buckets and in jars of stone. In Exodus, it was fresh water that was affected, and in Revelation, it is seawater, so they're not identical, but the parallels are close enough for the person familiar with Exodus, the book of Exodus, to see these connections. And as there are several of these types of similarities in the book of Revelation, it becomes obvious that God is saying something by his selection of judgments. Now, verses 10 and 11. And the third angel blew his trumpet, and a great star fell from heaven, burning like a torch, and it fell on 1/3 of the rivers and on the springs of water. And the name of the star is wormwood. And 1/3 of the waters became wormwood, and many men died from the waters because they were made bitter. Sometimes in the Bible, angels are symbolized by stars, and most likely that is what is going on here. A fallen angel is cast down to the earth, and once again, waters are affected. This time, the fresh waters are turned bitter, meaning they're unsafe to drink. And so the result is that many people die from drinking the bitter water. And then the last of the judgments in this chapter, and the fourth angel blew his trumpet, and 1/3 of the sun was struck, and 1/3 of the moon, and 1/3 of the stars, so that 1/3 of them should be darkened, and 1/3 of the day should not shine, and the night as well. With the fourth trumpet, 1/3 of the sun, moon, and stars are darkened. Now, apparently, this is only in regards to the Earth's reception of their light and not an actual extinguishing of 1/3 of these celestial bodies. The reason for this deduction is that it is for 1/3 of the day and night that the light is stopped. If the light is stopped at the source, then we will receive reduced light by 1/3 all day long and all night long. This is also another example of an Old Testament prophecy regarding the tribulation, as seen in Isaiah 13:10. For the stars of heaven and their constellations will not give their light. The sun will be darkened at its rising, and the moon will not give light. From Isaiah, we already knew something about this future judgment. Revelation, however, adds some detail, and it also provides us the basic order of events. We now know from Revelation 8 that this part of the judgments is the fourth trumpet judgment. Jesus also prophesied about the end times and the cataclysmic events that would come upon mankind and the universe. He said in Luke 21, "And there will be signs in sun and moon and stars, and on the earth distress among nations, in perplexity at the roaring of the sea and the waves, men fainting from fear and expectation of the things which are coming on the world, for the powers of the heavens will be shaken." And finally, chapter 8 ends with a special announcement regarding the last three trumpet judgments, which we will cover in future videos. Verse 13 reads, "And I looked and I heard an eagle flying in mid-heaven, saying with a great voice, Woe, woe, woe to the one who dwells on the earth, because of the trumpet blast and the three angels who are about to blow their trumpets." Either an eagle is given voice, or this refers to an angelic being. We recall that one of the four living creatures in chapter 4 was like a flying eagle. So this eagle may be a seraph or another type of celestial being, or it may be speaking of an actual eagle that has the ability to speak, much like Balaam's donkey in Numbers chapter 22. But this eagle announces woe, woe, woe to the ones who dwell on the earth. Now, anytime a word is said in triplet, it is a superlative. So this is the greatest level of woe or affliction. The ones who dwell on earth, that is another way of saying worldly or secular people. It's not simply those who are still left on earth, but those who do not belong to God. Those who have made the earth their home in contrast to making heaven their home. So let's summarize the judgments that we have studied so far. The seal judgments, we've seen all 7 now. The first 4 are the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. First, the Antichrist on a white horse conquers through negotiation. Then a red horse comes depicting bloodshed and warfare. Then a black horse, which depicts famine and economic scarcity, followed by the fourth horse, which is pale green, depicting death to 1/4 of mankind. Then the fifth seal judgment are the martyred tribulation saints before God's altar. The sixth seal is an earthquake, in which we also see the sun turning black and the moon turning to blood. And then the seventh seal is quiet reverence in heaven as heaven prepares for the trumpet judgments. And then the first 4 of these trumpet judgments were 1/3 of the land is burned up, followed by 1/3 of the sea turning to blood. Then 1/3 of the fresh water turns bitter enough to kill people. And then 1/3 of the moon, the sun, and the stars are darkened. All right, well, that's all for now. Chapter 9 will cover trumpet judgments 5 and 6. God bless.